Hello everyone, my name is Daragh Carroll. I am the primary character artist working on Castle Dornstein with Digital Mosaic Games. I'm here today to take you through the character creation process of one of our characters, Anna, who you'll hopefully meet in our upcoming playable demo. We thought with the demo coming, it'd be fun to kind of work you through some of the asset creation, some of the creation of the assets that we're using in that demo, and subsequently the game. So you see, I'm blocking out some shapes, shades for the face, the hair, so on. These sprites are heavily inspired by some of the Lucasfilms games, like Indiana Jones comes to mind, Fate of Atlantis, so I find when you're working in such a small resolution that you don't really need to block out a skeleton like you would with, let's say, if you're drawing with a pencil. I find it much easier because I use a mouse for most of the small pixel work. That working with a mouse really helps. It really helps to just kind of play by ear and figure out the shapes as you go, because you have the rough size of the sprite and how you're not going to end up too big or too small, really. So obviously, if it helps you to use skeletal lines or anything, go for it. You see me checking reference a lot here. I didn't create that reference. I don't know where it's from. It was sent to me by the game's creator, David Brochik. You see the characters in this game. They tend to represent an archetype, a character archetype. And Anna here, she really represents kind of that warm, friendly, welcoming maid character, the medieval maid. A lot of archetypes from classical fiction and classic literature are kind of represented. And I find when you're working on a character like that, the best thing you can do is work from reference. Obviously, if you're working on something a little more fantastical, sci-fi or fantasy, it might be good to get away from reference where possible. Because you kind of want that creative edge. Nowadays, it's such a saturated market. You kind of need to do a bit more brain thinking power yourself and come to your own conclusions. Thankfully, this game kind of not parodies, but represents a lot of classical fiction, and therefore, especially for outfits and so on, reference was invaluable. You also see me referencing the sprite I've done for another character named Vladka a lot in this. You'll see Vladka idle in the tabs above. That is just to keep on model. Like I said earlier, I don't really use a scale any construction in underlaying these small resolution pixel characters. So I find that a mixture of intuition and keeping an eye on other sprites that I've done, that's perfect. You see me shading the skirt and so on. That's taken largely from Vladka. You can kind of take entire structures such as cloth and so on, and it's just once it's consistent, you won't notice. Now I'm moving on to what was originally the portraits for the game. I'll explain in a moment. These aren't what we actually ended up using in the demo, but I thought it'd be fun to show anyway. This is a 50 by 50 portrait that I'm doing, again with the mouse. I haven't used taken out the tablet yet. I'm working on kind of blocking out shapes for the face. Again, no construction at all. It's all very free-flowing, so maybe it'll take a couple of tries. I'll start blocking out, and then I'll get a shape that I'm not fond of, but you can see me kind of layering on color and so on under the chin there. It just kind of builds up form and shape over time and makes it easier for me to visualize the final product as this kind of shape starts to form. Obviously, I'll kind of smooth it all out later, but for the most part, this process is very much free-form, free-flowing. I like to keep it kind of, especially on this low resolution. It's very hard to get much meaningful information out of construction lines, I find. So I've kind of stuck with a very free-flowing approach. The beauty of working in this 5550 is I was able to keep it in Sprite, which is the software I use for every sprite in the game, or every sprite I've made in the game, backgrounds and so on, and the characters are all made in Sprite, which is a fantastic program for pixel artists. The other software is available. Obviously, there's Paint.net and GIMP and so on. If you don't want to pay for software, completely understandable for a small developer like us. Even we mostly go for free software. I just happened to have it when I joined the team already. So you see I'm kind of refining at this point. Once the blocking's done, I lower the eyes because I felt like it maybe made her look a bit more feminine. Funny story about this little mole she has. It didn't make the final cut. It was originally on the character Vladka, and it kind of split the team in half. We were kind of, you know, some people thought it would ruin kind of the pure look of Vladka, this kind of pale young woman. The other half of the team kind of thought it added character, you know, so for a character who's meant to be a bit older, maybe not so pretty as our main female protagonist Vladka, this Anna character, she took it for a while, and then eventually she lost it again, the mole. But carrying on, you know, I'm working down the neck into the shaded areas there, just adding any detail, any definition. You know, there is such a thing with pixel art as overworking it, and there are times when I'm very guilty of this. You see me kind of taking a few breaks there. But there is such a thing as overworking pixel art. So you see I'm kind of moving around the areas very quickly. Obviously this is sped up, but you see me kind of getting in and out of areas, jumping up and fixing stuff on the face, so on. It's because I don't want to overwork the pixels. You know, sometimes less is more in pixel art. If you did every detail on the face, not only would she end up looking tremendously old, but also she would kind of lose some of the... you know, you at such a low resolution you can't really see all the details, so you're better off keeping it simple, keeping it clean, so people can read. Readability is a huge issue for pixel art. Finishing up this piece, I suppose I'll explain why this didn't make the final cut. So during the production, originally we were working with the AGS standard resolution. This changed. We decided to double the resolution. So for instance, this character here, Severin, 1 pixel represented on him, as you see with the blue, is actually 4 game pixels, we'll say. This just gave us options with resolution, as you can see. It gave us options with like special effects with portraits, like you can see here, a rain effect where we'll say the raindrops are only 1/4 the size of one of Severin's pixels. It has this kind of a detail and an intricacy that to the eye that you wouldn't get otherwise. So we kind of doubled up the sprite sizes, doubled up the resolution of the game, kept the sprites the same, like the in-game sprites, but we doubled up the size of the portraits to allow more detail. Like you can see that Severin character in the bottom right, it's 100 by 100 now, so obviously a lot more detail is afforded. You can see I'm actually doing construction lines, rough construction lines for that painting, because once you get to 100 by 100 you have a lot more space to play with, a lot more shades and resolution and everything, and again you see me blocking out color like instantly. You know, the increase in resolution is noticeable. There's just so much more room to play with. I'm just blocking in shapes, shading, rough form, everything. So as you can see, the reason we increased was largely for these portraits. We felt there wasn't enough character, or it kind of felt too cartoony even with the small portraits for the kind of slightly serious tone we're going for with this game. We're going for a slightly darker tone, so we felt like the kind of gothic style painting would go. Now I will concede that there are points in this construction process of this painting where she does look absolutely terrifying. That's just because I'm very I'm detailing in very sharply every edge of the face, every dimple, like her lips, her smile, everything, kind of trying to find the form of it. So there are points in which it's quite terrifying seeing this face take shape. But you know, by the end, I like to think that she looks a bit softer, a bit kinder, a little a little less like the alien from Men in Black who's wearing the farmer's skin. But in the meantime, you know, it's all about adding kind of tonality and darkness. And in the future, something I haven't done for this. For these portraits is you can actually do it in black and white and then add a color layer. I'm using Clip Studio, but in Photoshop you can add a color layer, and that helps with that tonality. I did these raw because I wanted to keep the color palette the same as the sprites that I've used so far. The sprite you saw me create at the beginning of the video. So I felt that the only way to achieve that was by actually painting it in. I feel like when you do the color layer over the gray tones, they can get a bit muddied by the grayscale beneath. But anyway, you see me kind of working the lips. That I do find, as a developing artist, I'm far from perfect, and this isn't anyway a rope, but the lips are a tough one to get, because especially in such a low resolution, because you have such little wiggle room. So either they're jutting up and she's smiling like the Joker, or they're kind of too flat and she just looks too serious. So I think, you know, we kind of found we're doing a bit of cross hatching here on the clothes now with some light tones to kind of give it that woolen texture, and then kind of going over it again to smooth them out a bit. So hopefully you can see that kind of woolen texture coming in. After that, I export it to Sprite. I get to a certain point of the painting, and I export it to Sprite, in which you can see me kind of looking around there, where I kind of add a border, add a background. I go out, as you can see, do an outline on the edge to kind of crisp it up, because it looks very blurry otherwise. And I get in and I work the eyes. The eyes are very difficult to paint in such a low resolution as 100 by 100. They just tend to lose a lot of character, and it gets very blurry very quickly because those brushes aren't quite made for such a low resolution. So I come in and I do some touch-ups on the shading where I can. I test that mole out, and it doesn't quite work, so I ended up cutting it in the end. But, you know, we kind of work it out. And then in the end, it'll show up in a minute, the final product. I added a frame around it in Sprite as well. That kind of just gives it that kind of gothic feel. So, yep, here's the final portrait. As I said, this character, Anna, will be featuring prominently in our upcoming demo. So follow this space, follow our Twitter. We have a Facebook group as well, if you want to stay informed on the game's development. Hopefully we'll be making more video content like this. I know our sound man, Dan, he's talking about running some kind of sound, not tutorials or things like that. So if you enjoyed this video, and if you want more kind of like, not necessarily instructional, but just commentary and more interaction in that regard, please let us know. We're only happy to do it. I know I enjoyed making this video, so I'd be happy to do more on some other characters or some other facets of the game's design. So thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you all playing the demo when it releases. As I record this, the date isn't quite set yet, but it'll be probably under this video, or at least on Twitter at that point. So thank you very much for watching. Take care, look after yourselves, wear your masks, and I'll see you guys later.